I'm 36 years old, was married for 8 years, and have 2 children. Along with this, I'm the only son of my father. My dad had been suffering from kidney problems for many years, but in the last 2 to 3 years, his condition worsened, and he needed dialysis twice a week. He used to commute on his own, but over the last year he often asked me to accompany him. He's growing weaker every day. I made a routine for myself to take my father for dialysis every time, because I don't want to leave him alone in this condition. He needs dialysis twice a week, so I fix Saturdays and Wednesdays. Saturday is my day off, so it's not a concern. And for Wednesday, I got permission from my boss to leave early and then make up the hours by working at night after returning home. I've been working at this company for 10 years, and my boss has seen me as a hardworking and loyal employee. Granting me this special permission wasn't a big deal for him. However, the problem was at home with my wife, Lisa. When she found out I'd be taking my dad for dialysis twice a week, she was furious. She didn't like it when I took him occasionally, but she never expressed her displeasure openly. Now that I'd taken up the responsibility diligently, she couldn't stop herself. She said there was no point in wasting my time on my father, because no matter what I did, he was never going to be impressed by me. Here's a little context. My dad owned a merchandising business. He was quite well off and had acquired decent wealth. He wanted me to take over his business, but I was passionate about something else. I wanted to get into technology. I loved coding and creating software. So after school, when Dad wanted me to take business or management courses, I pursued a software degree. He was fine with that as long as I was willing to join his company. However, after graduating, I started working for a renowned tech firm. Dad wasn't happy that instead of continuing his legacy, I was working for someone else. He kept asking me to join his business, and I kept stalling. After my marriage, Dad asked me one final time if I wanted to join. I said no, and Dad got furious, saying he'd give all his wealth to charity and I wouldn't get a penny. I still stood firm. I was earning well even at that age, bought a car and my own house by 29. I was confident I could lead a decent life without his wealth. I told him I didn't need his money and could build wealth on my own. Our relationship soured after that. 5 years ago, Mom passed away from cardiac arrest. It was devastating for Dad. I'd moved out of the house at 17 for college, then got a job and started living on my own. The only companion Dad had was Mom, and losing her was the most devastating thing for him. That's when our bond was renewed. I started visiting him often and took my kids to play with him. Eventually, he stepped down from his company and gave it to a trust to run. My wife, Lisa, was never close to my parents. She avoided visiting them, saying my mother was too nosy in our lives and they didn't get along. When my father announced he'd removed me from his will, Lisa openly criticized my parents for being mean and evil. I insisted she stay out of my relationship with my parents, but she always interfered, saying it would affect our future, especially our children's. I assured her our future was secure irrespective of Dad's wealth, but she didn't understand. Now, coming to the current situation, Lisa created a fuss when she found out I'd be taking Dad for dialysis twice a week. I tried to make her understand that Dad had no one but me. He lost his parents a long time ago. Though he has an elder brother, he lives on the other end of the city and rarely visits. Dad became very lonely after Mom's death, and I couldn't abandon him, but my wife refused to understand this. Lately, she made my life miserable. Every Saturday, she came up with some plan, hosting a party, deep cleaning the house, going out with the kids, or as trivial as grocery pickup. I explained she could plan anything she wanted on Sundays because I had to take Dad for dialysis on Saturdays, but she kept making plans and later rebuked me for being late or missing them. I had to rush to pick up Dad, take him to dialysis, drop him off, and then hurry back home to her sarcasm and tantrums. It wasn't just about Saturdays. She did the same for Wednesday evenings. I committed to my boss that I'd make up the remaining work hours late in the evening or at night after returning from dialysis. But she always had a plan to trouble me. Almost every Wednesday evening, she'd go out to meet her family, catch up with long-lost friends, or attend some random party. Leaving the children's responsibility to me, I had to juggle my work, cook for the kids, feed the younger one, and complete my pending tasks. This was after a hectic day at work in the dialysis center. I know this is getting long, but you need to understand how miserable my situation was. Many times my dad suggested that he go to the center with the nurse because he saw me always in a hurry, intensely looking at my watch. After dropping him home, I didn't even wait a second and rushed back. Even while picking him up, I asked him to be ready and come outside before I arrived. Dad has a full-time nurse and a caretaker, but I still felt bad for not spending time with him. The drive from his house to the center is 30 minutes. Earlier, I used to enjoy chatting with him during that drive about the good old days of childhood, but as Lisa's tantrums increased, all I cared about was rushing back home. Most of the time, I was speeding through traffic, taking shortcut lanes, and overtaking other vehicles to cut down the drive time. This is the only time I get to spend with Dad, and I didn't want to ruin or stop it by asking him to go with the nurse. I too have some responsibilities as a son. I'm just not able to bear this woman any longer. It's unfair of my wife to be upset with me for wanting to take care of him and spend some time with him while I still can. Maybe she's just concerned for me and how my father treated me in the past. All that said, after you lose a parent, you're reminded of how fast time flies and just what life is about. It's not unusual for people to try to make things work while they're still around. It doesn't mean I want to be put back in the will. It just means I'm trying to be a good son. Update 1. It's just getting worse every day. My wife is not leaving any stone unturned to dissuade me from attending to my father. Her point is that it's a lost cause. Dad has already removed me from his will and given his wealth to charity, so there's no point wasting time and energy on him. I fail to understand. Do we do everything just for profit and loss? What if someone's parents didn't have any wealth or were poor? Should their children abandon them because they have nothing to offer? After listening to her tantrums for so many months, I finally told her that she wasn't going to inherit anything from her parents. So why does she visit them every now and then? Oh my God, she lost it at this and said, "My parents did a lot more than your greedy father. They supported me in everything. They're not like your father, who disowned you for not joining his business. My father would never do that to me, so don't you dare compare my parents to yours." It wasn't just once. This type of argument became the norm at my house, almost every Wednesday and Saturday after I returned from dialysis. It's getting more severe and ugly every time. Earlier, she used to fight with me alone. Now she yells and shouts at me in front of the children. Not only this, I've heard her bad-mouthing my dad in front of the kids and manipulating them against me and my dad. I intervened, which led to another ugly fight between us. Fighting has become a routine for me. On the days she doesn't fight, I feel something is missing, only for her to become more aggressive the next day. I've almost given up on her. I don't yell back or answer her. I just ignore her as if she doesn't exist for me. What else can I do? I cannot abandon my father just to please her. I don't care if he's kicked me out of his will. He did so because of my own decision. I refused to join his company, and he was forced to give his hard-earned business to a trust. It must have been so disheartening for him. That company was his baby, and he had to donate it to someone else. He had every right to disown me because I hurt him. I sometimes feel karma is biting me back because I hurt my dad. On the other hand, Dad is becoming weaker. He's barely able to walk on his own and needs support to step down to the car. To save time, I used to ask him to come outside, but now I don't care about being late. I go inside to carefully walk him to the car and then drop him back to his bed until he settles down peacefully. He's also having shortness of breath, so I make sure to walk him as slowly as he needs. While driving, I now drive carefully, not speeding, to avoid increasing his heart rate. I don't care about going late to my house because rushing home wasn't helping. If I have to deal with that evil woman anyway, why not at least keep Dad happy? My casual attitude worsened the situation. Yesterday, Lisa said I needed to choose between her and my dad. I tried to make her understand that Dad wasn't going to be with us forever. Seeing his condition, it didn't look like he had long to live. She came back with a curt reply. "In that case, you need to choose carefully. Someone who's going to be with you forever, or someone who's going to die soon." This was so insensitive. I told her, "You know what? I'd rather choose my dad than choose you, who is so evil and selfish to a dying man." She packed her bags and left. I didn't stop her. She needed time to cool off, and I needed space from her. In her absence, I'm taking care of the house, the children, Dad, and my work. Yet I feel so relieved, so relaxed. Her absence is soothing to me. The day before yesterday, she sent me divorce papers. I was somewhat expecting it, but didn't anticipate it so soon. I was shocked, but deep down, I was happy and relieved. I didn't call her, just signed the papers and sent them back. Surprisingly, she didn't ask for custody of the children, the only clause I was worried about. She clearly didn't want them. When she received the papers, she called me yelling, "How could you just sign it without calling and pleading with me?" Funny, right? Her mom snatched the phone and shouted that I should have acted like a man and tried to pacify my wife back into the marriage instead of just signing the papers. It was so funny. Why would I do that? She wanted a divorce, and I complied. It was good for me. I got rid of her without a fuss. I also taunted her, saying she even abandoned her children and didn't want them. She said I could have all my assets, including my 2 kids. She didn't want any of it. Her mother said Lisa was still very young and didn't want the baggage of children on her shoulders. I said fine by me. I'm glad to have my kids with me. It is a relief, no doubt, but I'm worried about my children. They miss their mom, especially the younger one. When I'm at the office, it's tough managing all the responsibilities alone, but I hope I'll sail through this. It sucks that Lisa is literally incapable of being supportive. It's unfair when you're just trying to do the right thing, and she keeps kicking you down. The fact that she gave me an ultimatum is ridiculous. What did my father ever do to her? Why would I want to be with someone like her anyway? I need someone who will support me 100% and bear the load while I'm at maximum capacity. She couldn't stand not being the center of my world. No wonder she didn't want her own kids. She'd have to share them with me, and she doesn't seem like she's into sharing. Update 2. This is a shorter update. I moved to Dad's house with my children. It's a great move, thanks to everyone for the lovely suggestion. It worked out. Moving in with Dad was good for all of us. Dad got the company of my children, and they got their grandpa to play with. Dad had a full-time caregiver who was ready to take care of my children for a raise. Why not? Someone to take care of my children under my dad's supervision. The best deal, right? It's such a happy feeling to see my dad playing and laughing with my children and them enjoying themselves with their grandpa. Lisa didn't see this coming. She wanted to make my life miserable by divorcing me. She thought I wouldn't be able to juggle all the responsibilities, taking care of the children, my dad, the house, and work. But everything is set perfectly. I'm definitely having the last laugh. The divorce was the best thing ever. Ha! This sounds like the best medicine for your father. Update 3. It's sad news. Dad passed away last week in his sleep. He went to bed happy and content after playing with my children and never woke up again. The doctor said he died peacefully. The doctor, his nurse, and even his caregiver said Dad was happy after I moved in with him, and it actually increased his lifespan. He was on the verge of giving up before I moved in. It is very sad to lose your only parent, but I'm glad he spent the last few months of his life happily. My children are also very sad to lose him, but Dad imparted good values to them. They say Grandpa used to teach them to accept reality and move on. Life never stops for anyone. I feel so proud to hear such good things from them. They are indeed my strength in this moment of despair. But there's more shocking news that came after Dad's demise. Dad's lawyer reached out, asking me to come to his office to reveal Dad's will. I said I wasn't required. Dad had already told me he'd given all his wealth to the trust, so I was fine with that. I asked if I needed to vacate Dad's house, guessing it was also given to the charity trust. The lawyer laughed and asked me to just come over. When I went there, the trust members were already present. The lawyer had called them as well. When the lawyer started reading the will, I was in tears. Dad had willed everything to me: his business, his house, his wealth. I asked the lawyer if this change was made recently, thinking he did it after I started taking care of him. The lawyer smiled and said I was always his heir, and the will was never altered. I was inconsolably crying, realizing Dad never abandoned me. Maybe he threatened to disown me so I'd take over his business and legacy. I was still crying when Dad's attorney pacified me. I said it killed me inside that I hurt my dad all his life, but he always cared for me. The lawyer said Dad was very proud that I didn't give up on my passion under his pressure, and that I was happy to lose my generational wealth to pursue my passion. Dad was very proud of me. The lawyer said I'm the decision maker of the business, and if I want, I can take the company back from the trust and run it myself. I'm thinking of doing that. I did what I wanted. Dad indirectly supported me. Now it's my time to pay him back. I'm thinking of taking it back from the trust and scaling it to the level Dad wanted his business to reach. I came home and told my children about their grandpa's will. He left some wealth to my children as well, which they'll receive after they turn 18. Today we went to his grave with flowers and spent some time in serenity. It's a very emotional phase for me. I'm so sorry for your loss, OP. The support your father showed you is the exact support your wife should have shown you. Update 4. Oh, the ants came running on seeing the sugar candy. A month after Dad's demise, I started taking over his business and the community service work. First, I quit my job and took over the business. Then, I rented out my house because my children and I decided to live in my parents' house. They feel connected to their grandpa in this house. This house has my childhood memories, so I also don't want to leave it. With the news that I inherited my father's million-dollar wealth, I got many visitors at my house. Long-lost relatives, friends, and neighbors. But the most surprising visitor was my ex-wife Lisa and her parents. They entered the house, sobbing, saying they didn't know about my father's demise, or else they would have attended the funeral. Her parents went on to say all good things about my dad. Lisa hugged the children and cried about how much she missed them. I asked her, "If you missed them so much, why didn't you visit them in the last 7 to 8 months?" She said she went to our house, but it was locked. What BS? I was like, weren't you worried about your children when you saw the house was locked? Didn't you feel it necessary to contact me and check if the kids were fine? She had no answer. Her parents were like, let's forget whatever happened in the past. Now that my father is gone, the children would be left alone in the house when you're at work. They need a mother, so it's better that we reconcile. I laughed in their faces at this suggestion. The children needed her the most when she left them. Now the children have gotten used to her absence, and I don't want her back in my life. She started crying, and her parents left us alone. She held my hands and pleaded with me for reconciliation. She said she loved me and missed being with the children. I laughed and said, you know what? You don't love me. You love the wealth my dad left me. You and your greedy parents are here on my doorstep just to leech off my money. I don't regret using those words because that's what they are. She also called my dad greedy and mean during our divorce. There was no way I was letting this woman have a penny of my dad's hard-earned money. She got offended that I had insulted her parents. She said, until now, she was pleading with me because she loved me, but now she would take what was rightfully hers. She didn't demand alimony during the divorce, but now she wanted half of my wealth, half of my dad's wealth. I told her she could do whatever she wanted, but I would destroy her before giving her a penny. She cursed me and left. I discussed this with my lawyer. He said her chances were slim. The divorce was settled a year before I got the inheritance. Besides, the children were with me, so there was no way she could get anything. He also advised me to be careful about letting her spend time with the children. She could manipulate them and file for custody, then use them to demand money for their maintenance and all that. I couldn't be more thankful for this advice. I'm going to supervise their meetings. I'm also spending a lot of time with the kids these days to help them cope with the loss, so they don't run to their mommy for emotional support. I've undertaken my dad's company, so it gives me a lot of flexibility to manage my well-being and personal life. I'm planning to take the kids on a vacation to the Bahamas. Yeah, why not? They deserve this lavish vacation. It's not about overspending my dad's wealth. I could have afforded it before, but I didn't have the time while juggling work and taking care of Dad. Now that I can, I want to take them out. As far as Lisa is concerned, she hasn't contacted me since her last visit. I think she's busy knocking on every lawyer's door to file a suit against me. Honestly, I'm not surprised. She was just looking for some quick cash to support her lifestyle. You're right. She doesn't deserve a cent of what my father left me. She's not interested in me or the kids. She hasn't even bothered to see them. She just wants the cash. Honestly, she might have been jealous about the relationship I had with my parents before all this drama.